Hi, everybody. I'm DJ Sixsmith. You watch The Sit Down. Zakiya Dalila Harris is here with us, the other Black girl, her fantastic brand new book from Simon & Schuster. Zakiya, really nice to meet you. How are you?
Thank you so much. It's nice to meet you. And I'm doing good, trying to stay cool in Brooklyn, but not bad. How about you?
I'm doing well. It's been a hot summer, and it
Yes.
must be a crazy summer for you because you have your debut novel. It's a New York Times bestseller, GMA Book Club, New York Public Library Book Club. I mean, how are you handling this moment right now? This is insane.
How am I handling this moment? Well, trying to spend a lot of time, when I'm not doing all the chats and conversations, just like playing video games, reading books, being outside. So it's been a lot, but an amazing amount of a lot, just really great things. So I can't believe how the reception and like that I'm chatting with you, like these kind of conversations, it's just I never imagined it.
Can you paint the picture for folks what life looked like a couple years ago? You're working in publishing, you're just trying to build your career. Where were you at in your life at that point?
Yeah, gosh, it's so crazy to think about. So yeah, I mean, 2 years. Let's see, we're in 2021. This is 2019. I had just quit my job, so I worked in book publishing for 2.5, 3 years, which of course is very much what inspired this book in a lot of ways. And I was an editorial assistant for a while, got promoted to be an assistant editor, and was really excited about it, about the idea of getting more responsibility, about getting to work on all the Black books. But I also, at the time, was experiencing burnout and had this idea for this book in like January 2019. And then from there, I just started writing it and got so into it and quit. And it was really scary and intense and cobbling together all the part-time work and figuring out how to make sure I still had time space for myself, which is something I think I'll always be trying to navigate, but it's very different time.
Well, it certainly worked out for you. So why don't we talk about the novel here? What was most important to you here? Because there's so many different things to hit on, right? Whether it's Nella or Hazel,
Mhm.
microaggressions, racism in the publishing world. What were you really focused on here?
Yeah, there is so much going on. I mean, for me, the first thing that I was really thinking about while just writing the book, starting it at my cubicle, was Nella and Hazel, these two Black women who work in this very white workplace, and what it's like for them to have this urge and or feel like they want to be community, at least on Nella's part, but then to also have this pressure of feeling like they have to be community because they are the two Black people at the office. Because there's often this interesting push pull that I feel of this truism that, okay, we're all supposed to help each other out. We're supposed to nod at each other Black people, when we're in the same room, especially when there's mostly white people around, which is how I was raised for sure. But then, of course, there's this other sense of like, there can only be one of us because there are so few of us in so many different industries still. And so those kind of two truisms at odds is what I was really fascinated by. So I wanted to explore that and a lot of the nuances that Black people, Black women talk about a lot among ourselves, about Black hair, and also about, feeling this pressure to always be speaking for Black people all the time, and rather than just being able to be, and really making sure I hopefully got that experience right for other Black people who've experienced it.
You hit on a lot of really important things there. There's the one scene with Nella where the author comes in and she feels this push pull about whether to say anything about the characters. And that speaks to the
Yes.
whole point here because if you don't say anything, then you're not representing other people. If you do say anything, it could blow up in your face. So, what was it like playing that one out on the page?
Yeah, that one was really tricky. I mean, I knew very early on. I mean, a lot of things didn't make it into the book in terms of scenes. I mean, this book has so many timelines, so many points of view, like I couldn't include everything. But that is one that definitely was in from the get-go because I really wanted to show how hard that is. There's no right answer throughout this entire book. There are a lot of questions I pose of like, what's the best way to bring about change? Do you sit quietly and kind of work to be within the system and then hopefully bring other people in? Or do you just automatically say what's on your mind? And for someone who's in this kind of environment, like I had worked in myself, of being an entry-level employee, and really worrying about your stature there and making sure, you know, you're on the path to the promotion, to being an editor, all of those things. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. So making sure I showed all of the conflicts within Nella, and then of course what happens in response to that, I really wanted to make sure I got that right, because I think that's such a real conversation that we're having. And then of course, like when you're talking to other people who are not Black or other white people, frankly, about race, um, those conversations are so sticky, and it's like, how do you navigate them? Everybody's different. So it was intense, but it was very also you know, therapeutic to write it too, I have to say.
I would imagine so, given your experience. And you just mentioned how intense the job is. And then you throw all these other things in there. And I know hair is a big part of the conversation here, right? Whether it's
Hmm.
conversations between Black women or just the way that white people don't understand Black hair. I think that's a big topic to talk about. So,
Yeah.
what was most important here just about that conversation and even the cover of the book? You know, I think that's a really compelling image. So, why did you want hair to be such a focal point here?
Yeah, I mean, hair for me, it has been such a fraught topic, especially as a young person. I mean, I relaxed my hair from the get-go as a young person. For like more than a decade, I was straightening my hair. And it wasn't until like 6 years ago where I was really thinking about why. And for me, my reasons weren't good enough anymore. I had been raised around mostly white people. I really wanted to have straight hair. And then I had this radical change happen with me. I mean, it was a certain time in the US, the last wave before 2020 of, you know, Philando Castile and Eric Garner and those kind of things. And I chopped all of it off. And after that, I felt so empowered and so much more connected to the Black diaspora. That was just my experience. And so I knew for Nella, someone who'd also been raised around mostly white people, for her, even though she grew up in this middle class background in Connecticut, like her natural hair is what ties her to Hazel, who is from a very different background in Harlem. And so I knew that would be the reaching out point for her to seek this sense of community, because that feeling of, you know, natural hair, even if you don't have natural hair as a Black woman or Black person, you still know the stigmas, you know all of the ins and outs of it, most likely, because it's just something that has been ingrained in us for centuries.
One of the other themes of your book is the sense of community versus the sense of trust that you have in another person, right? As things
Mhm.
go along here, Nella doesn't realize what's going on with Hazel. So, what was it like playing that dynamic out in terms of the fact, like, you want to trust this person, but you also realize this person has ulterior motives here?
Yeah, yeah, it was really fun. It was really fun because I mean, I'm a big, like, I love drama and TV and books, especially between women. A big reality TV show person, Dateline, all of it, especially when that drama has serious stakes. And for Nell and Hazel, I'd argue they're even more serious because they are these two Black women in the office and have already so many people watching them and making assumptions about their relationship and who they are, and you know, maybe having the same opinions because they are both in this space as Black women, when of course it's not the reality. And so really playing up that, and also, you know, this, how horrifying that it is to be in Nella's position of thinking you have found someone who has finally, you know, you get it, you understand where I'm coming from, working in this office, and then to not have that is terrifying. To be rejected in that way, or think you might be rejected in that way. So all of those really messy, complicated feelings, and also, of course, feeling like you're maybe even being replaced. Those are all really real feelings that we've all felt in some capacity. And I thought it'd be really fun to show it happening to someone like Nella, who has been on the straight and narrow for so long, and then has all of her plans are suddenly put into balance.
You mentioned earlier how your previous experience in publishing informed what you wrote about. Did you have anybody that you worked with reach out to you after this to be like, "Hey, I didn't realize what was happening at the time, and I'm sorry I didn't talk to you about anything," or what was that like for you?
Yeah, you know, it's funny because we actually did send this book when we were trying to find a publisher. We did send the book to both of the imprints I worked at Ping and Random House, which was so weird and surreal. But I had a lot of really great conversations with editors I'd worked with about it, and also coworkers who, I mean, multiple friends slash coworkers of mine read it and gave me their thoughts and were like, oh, this is so real, like, which is really validating for me. But the thing that I hear a lot is that this book, and this is what I wanted too, is that this book really, of course, it's about publishing, but it's also about really any industry. Unfortunately, I've heard from Black people in education and in medicine, and everybody has told me, or not everybody, but most people have told me that they've been triggered or they've seen this conversation. And conversely, white people have told me, especially in publishing, like, I see myself in this book, or I see someone I know in this book, I work with in this book. And so that's been, a sign. I'm hoping that this means that we can talk about these things more. And hopefully, when people are back in the office, publishing will move toward a more diverse and inclusive space.
I think that's one of the craziest parts about just everything that's happened the past year and a half, right? So many of these conversations have not happened in person, and
Right.
some of these issues are not new, as you know, as I know. I think the
Hmm.
really interesting thing will be, how do we have those conversations going forward? And I think your book will help a lot, because you mentioned it.
Thank
It's
you.
white people, it's Black people, it's all different types of people having an impact. What's been most surprising in terms of reaction? Maybe something you didn't anticipate when you wrote the book.
Ooh, I think for me, the thing honestly is the conversations about hair, or like, so the thing for me, I mean, people ask me like, did you intentionally put these things in without explaining them, like in terms of like the conversations about 4C hair and kitchens and all those things. And honestly, I didn't really even think about it, because there were things that I talk about with my Black friends, and my partner. Those kind of things are conversations we always have, and so I wasn't really thinking of like, me being political about it, to be honest. But now looking back on it, the responses of so many white people, and just non-Black people Googling all of these things and Googling these references, that is something that I did not really think about when I was writing. And I really appreciate that it's, hopefully meaning that, again, we were talking about conversations, just like more knowledge, because we already, and a lot of Black people have been Googling all of the things that we've been reading for years, and it's really easy to do. So that's been really cool.
I was just about to say, Black people for years have been having to force themselves to learn about white culture, where white people haven't had to do the same thing. So I think it's
Exactly.
really eye-opening to have this experience, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's what I hope. That's what I hope.
Absolutely. So when you think about this journey, the other cool part of it is that this is going to be adapted into a TV show. You could hit even more people with that. I mean, what's
Hmm.
most inspiring to you, just in terms of using your art to create change and create conversation on an even bigger platform?
Yeah, I mean, for me, and you mentioned the cover of this book and how it's just oozing Blackness. That's really what I wanted. And so thinking about the book, I'm like, it's so cool that young people can go into the store, the library, and see it and pick it up and feel like this is for them. And I think that's exactly how I feel about the TV show too. I mean, there will be so many. Black characters, and they'll be exploring things that we don't talk about that often, and having conversations and code switching, all of that. So I'm really excited to have a chance to just bring all of the beautiful Blackness of the cover of this book and the contents of the book into the TV space. And I'm also, just an aside, really excited about all the music and the outfits. Those are the two things. The music for sure, because I'm just such a big music person. Like, I can't wait to just put all of the various like decades of music that swirl around my head all the time. So thank
I can't wait to see that play out. Zakiya, really nice to meet you.
you.
Congrats on the book. Everybody pick up The Other Black Girl. It's fantastic. And we'll talk to you again down the road, all right?
That sounds great. Thank you so much. This is so much fun.